Hi, WikiTree! Welcome
Hi.
to our WikiTree Live, our second one.
Yay.
We have Mags and Steve and Eowyn, just audio, because
Sorry.
she had some technical difficulties with her internet today.
Yep.
We have lots of people already on the stream. I've seen Natalie, Esme, Alesh, Isabel, Susie. Hello, everybody. How are we all doing today?
Amy. Hi, Amy. Amy's lives really close to where I live. Margaret Allison was in. I don't know if she's still here. Rebecca Duncan.
She had posted really yesterday for our time zone.
Ah, gotcha.
And Pip says,
"Yep, what?"
Pip says, "Steve, where's your hat?" There we are.
It's never far away.
So we got lots of stuff lined up today. We'll talk about our profile of the week, the question of the week, photos of the week, and then we'll bring in Steve at the end to answer some cemetery questions.
So you guys can't beat up on him yet?
No, not yet.
Soon.
And it's going to be cemetery questions, not category questions. I mean, if you want to ask him category questions, I guess that's okay. Natalie already asked one, but we'll save that till the end.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to start with, so our question of the week this week is, have you been helped by a WikiTreeer, or how have you been helped by a WikiTreeer?
Yeah, and we had some really great questions. The best one, I think, do you want me to share this or just?
Yeah, sure.
Should we share the screen or share?
I'll share the screen.
Okay.
Let me find you people. There we go. Question of the week. Okay, so the question of the week is a really good question of the week, and I'm not going to go down and read all the names of all the people that were listed as people that have helped. I can tell you that a lot of names came up repeatedly, Eowyn. But there were some really cool ones, like Rodney Long down here. Speaking of cemeteries, let me make my screen humongous. Speaking of cemeteries, Rodney Long had a good one down here showing that he had been helped by setting up his category for his cemetery. And I think it's a really good cemetery. It's for Mill Creek Church of the Brethren Cemetery in Port Republic, Virginia. I love the info box at the top. I like that it doesn't have a ton of verbiage in it, which we're not supposed to have a bunch of writing in our categories. I think the one name studies categories might be one exception to that. But it's very short and sweet, great information, and lots of great cemetery information. Let's just zoom off. So this is one of the guys in the cemetery. And it's not just a picture of a tombstone with nothing in it. There's actually a really good biography for this person as well. Going back to our questions, moving on down to Virginia Fields, who had basically the best answer of the week. The best answer for the question of the week. And I want to click the star there. Like ones before me, there are too many people to list. WikiTree is such a great place for collaboration. I continually find help in the greeters group, and the greeters are like the first line of help when you come to WikiTree. So that's a big, I'll mention them. I learn all the time by scrolling through the G2G forum and reading the replies to various questions. The project managers for the projects to which I belong are always helpful. There are so many ways to find help here, and that is what makes this such a wonderful genealogy site. I think that is like the best answer to this question of the week, because it really hits the high points. The greeters, how much help there is in G2G, and how much our projects can help people as well, which I don't think a lot of people realize, that even if they don't know anything about a project, or they just live in the area of the project, or they just have interest in something, they can join the project and they're going to learn a lot about the project and how WikiTree works by doing that. Lois Tilton had another good one down here. One wonderful member not only helped me find a source for the will that she was searching for, but when she couldn't get a hold of the record office, the person who helped her placed the order for her. How cool is that? It's truly above and beyond. I'm always amazed at how our G2G people are about going out and getting sources and information. There was one question from Christopher Caldwell. Let me see if I can scroll down and find that one. There we go. Right here. Christopher has a good one that says, again, I can't list the number of times I've been helped by WikiTreeers, but, and this is where he pays it forward. He says, help is always on hand, whatever the question, and I try to return this help by working within the England project. Pay it forward. That's the concept and the whole great good thing about our site.
When you start,
what's that, Eowyn?
Oh no, I was gonna say when you start, you don't know much, and then you get helped by other people. But then as you grow on WikiTree, then you're able to help those that are just beginning. And then even when you're more advanced, you still get help along the way because there's always things to learn on WikiTree.
There is. There was one more question that I'm not going to show, so I'm going to stop sharing. But I wanted to address the question, and the question, it wasn't a question; it was a comment that. Somebody had other people making changes to their ancestors' profile without asking. And I'm sorry to hear that people haven't been communicating, but on WikiTree, you don't have to ask to do work on other people's profiles. You just need to let them know. And we encourage people to work on other profiles. And the best thing to do is if you see somebody working a profile for your ancestor and they haven't contacted you, realize that maybe they just didn't contact you by accident, or there may be a challenge on and they're just not doing all the things that they should. But reach out to them and say, hey, I see you working on my ancestors' profiles. I'd love to share information and try and get the look of the profile the way we both would like it, rather than you just changing everything. And I appreciate your changes. You have to work on being collaborative. You have to talk to people. You have to tell people what you want to do and how you want things to be if it's a close profile to you, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people can also get really excited too, be like, oh my gosh, I found this source, I'm just going to add it. And then
yeah, so it's not something that somebody's doing to be mean. It's just that truly you don't have to ask permission to change a source on a profile. You just usually need to let the profile manager know. And a quick note is, hey, I'm doing research on this profile. If you see any changes I've done, you can always revert them in the changes tab.
Yep.
That's the questions of the week.
Well, thank you, Mags, for those. I guess we'll segue into because since we were talking about the England project, but this is the King of Denmark, but he married some English people. Let me tell you, this guy, our profile of the week, Christian the 7th of Denmark, was very interesting man, to say the least. He wasn't the best person, it wasn't his fault. He didn't grow up very well. His father had this guy, Chief Justice Count Reventlow, educate him, and he just was harsh and mean and pretty much messed up poor little Christian for the rest of his life. And it says here, it was a very well-written profile too. I forgot it. Oh, it says he had become shy, vicious, vengeful, and with little faith in other people because of his previous upbringings with Count Reventlow.
Wow.
So that was, upbringing, affected the rest of his life. His father died right before he was 17. And then shortly after, he married his first cousin, Caroline Mathilde of Great Britain.
It looks like you're wearing one of those feather boas and a wind machine is blowing it around your
So yes, he married his first cousin, and marriage wasn't too great. He was always getting into brawls, roaming the streets, going home drunk, going to brothels. They had a son, though, named Frederick. And then As he got older, his mind started to go, and so he had this physician named I can't even say that. Strunesi, which basically, after his mind slowly deteriorated, he became de facto king, and he was also having an affair with with the queen, his wife, his stepmother, because his father remarried after his father died. His stepmother was like, no, no, no. So basically got the physician executed and his queen exiled, and she became the queen. She ruled until Frederick, their son, was old enough. And I thought that was a very interesting story. I don't know if all of you guys had read it yet, but I wanted to share that.
That
Natalie
is
says Natalie says she's the de facto queen in her house. So that's, it's, I will always say this. I love profiles of the week because I just read this yesterday. I was reading it and I was like, wow, it's really crazy how his life,
Yeah.
you just know, like, oh, he was a king, whatever, but you read about his history and his life and all these things that happened to him. You're like, wow, he didn't really have a good life.
Not really.
So
Nice.
yeah. And we can look at some photos. He was a profession of the week. Not profession of the week. What am I saying? Photo of the week. Professions. So we had some really cool ones. They're in a band.
Oh, I love that one.
I really like this one a lot.
Yeah.
With their look, Steven, you had to put your cowboy hat on. They have their cowboy hats on.
Oh, Lord.
I've actually seen this. This one's gotten posted before, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
It was a photo of the week years ago.
Yeah, because it was a bluegrass band, and I like that.
Doctor. This guy was a doctor. Also, look, he has a hat too. Everybody's just wearing hats. Oh, look! With the baby raccoons.
Aww.
Little zookeeper.
Aww. He's not a little zookeeper.
Well, he's the raccoons are little.
Yes. Are they keeping the zookeeper?
Mm-hmm. Look, a golfer. That's a good action shot.
In a full suit.
Mm-hmm. It must have been hard. I don't know how hard it was to take an action shot back then, but
probably kind of hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good one with that old barn in the background.
Okay, that's a dog too there.
And a chicken? Does he have an animal that he's... Yeah, no, let's go away.
Doesn't say what he is, but probably a farmer. Now the fire department. Look at that.
That's a really cool picture.
Mm-hmm. And then let's go to the next page. Printing press. Very cool. Guys are showing off their printing press, just hanging. Oh, look, a dentist.
Oh man.
Get in her mouth.
I think that picture was staged.
Probably. She's smiling too much because it's not happy moments.
Fun. No.
Old cars. Look, they're at a candy store.
That's fun.
Okay. I'd seen a good one on the G2G thread because not everybody puts the same ones. Where was it? Maybe I'm imagining things. But look,
car conductor or a railroad conductor one.
He was a conductor or motorman for the Interurban in Champaign, Urbana, Illinois.
Yeah.
She was a student. She was the student learning how to be a dental hygienist.
Oh, look at that old reel-to-reel system.
When she worked in Honolulu, she worked at a radio station. Yeah, this guy was a farmer. Very cool pictures.
That one's cool too.
Mm-hmm. The wheelwrights. What is that?
Somebody who makes wheels.
Oh, okay. That's easy enough. I thought maybe it was more to it. Oh, this was in Key West. They played in Key West nightclubs. The band. Those are wonderful photos. Thank you very much, everybody, for sharing.
I love that 52 photos challenge. Those are so fun.
Yes, I enjoy them a lot. Okay. Now, I wanted to mention, because we also had our, I forgot I was supposed to be changing the banners at the bottom. We were talking about the question of the week and how you helped WikiTree, but then we also have one of our greeters, Wendy Taylor. She was our member of the week, and I don't know if you've read her blog post or her interview. She was talking about WikiTree and all that, and she had this quote, and she says, WikiTree was, in the gist of it, WikiTree is more than just dates and names. You're trying to make WikiTree, a place for future generations. And she said to try to make profiles more than just a series of named dates and locations. To really enhance those profiles, adding biographies, adding the life of the ancestor, not just he was born on this day here and died this day here, And I think that's what WikiTree is trying to encompass. That's why we have the biography section, the categories, all these projects. We're trying to, dig into more than just facts. We want facts, but more than just like the data. We want the in-betweens. So I think I wanted to share that for our member of the week this week, Wendy Taylor. So
good point.
Yes.
Good advice.
Thank you, Wendy. I don't know if she's watching or someone here who knows, can tell her. Oh, let's go back to sharing my screen really quick.
Susie McLeod calls that putting the flesh on the bones of the biography.
Mm-hmm. You get the bones in, and then you build the body with the muscles and the everything else. So I don't know if you guys all have noticed already. You probably have. It's been, if you're on WikiTree, you probably have noticed it in D2G. When I go back to Mr. King of Denmark, the new little buttons at the top of the profiles. I love these so much. So we have the categories, comments, matches, and sources. And I think those are the only 4 that show up. Like if you don't have any categories, you won't have a category thing show up. And then if there's not a sources header, sources won't show up, I don't think. But how has everybody been liking these?
I'm ready with my beep. Although I thought Eowyn was beeping you earlier.
I love them. They're great. It makes it a lot easier to navigate.
Mm-hmm. I use the categories one a lot, and the matches as well when I'm looking for merging.
Yeah.
The people in the chat keep saying the buttons are perfect. Amy, did somebody send you money to say that? Did Chris send you money to say that?
Don't say that.
Buttons are great. They're great. Love them. Love them.
Didn't know we needed them till we had them.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's and the categories up here, the little button up here, makes it real easy to just jump down to the bottom. And then you have this little thing go back to the top. And then it's so easy.
Do you know what I love? I love the fact that when somebody doesn't have birth or death information for places where those happened, that you could just look at the top of a profile before when we had it and see what the category said. You'd have an idea of where that person lived. But with the categories button now, the little tabs across the top, it's just a quick tap and look, and you can move on if you're just trying to look at a lot of different profiles at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can see what categories need to be added. Ooh.
Yes. Does he need any categories? Probably. He doesn't have a lot. Mr. Christian King of Denmark. Okay. I just wanted to show everybody that the big news feature of the week. That was pretty exciting. I loved those little buttons. Now
Aunt Peggy is here. Hey, Aunt Peggy.
Hi, Aunt. Is she everybody's aunt? She said she loves the new buttons as well.
Cool.
If you weren't following WikiTree, maybe just one day you noticed those buttons and you're like, oh, look at that. Just probably like with the comments, the new comments feature. You're like, oh, the comments moved. So now lots of exciting changes on WikiTree.
Always.
Follow the announcements tag so that you get updates when we do things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We usually try to put the ones that are important pinned at the top of the G2G. But yeah, announcements. Sorry, back to my Girl Scout days.
Hey, Aretha.
Okay, now we will segue into Steve with the Cemeteries Project. Before we start, I'll go back to sharing my screen. I should just keep sharing it. I don't know if all of you saw his beautiful newsletter.
It's awesome.
Now, where he doesn't just talk about the project itself, you know, he gives these little tidbits about gravestone symbolism and other tips about gravestone cleaning.
And how many people in the project offered information for this newsletter for you, Stephen?
Originally, not a lot. The newsletters really have been project focused. What is the project specifically working on? What are members specifically working on?
Right.
Global Cemeteries has tons of members, but we're spread out all over the place.
Right.
And we kind of work in spurts. You know, main mission is to go out, actually do photography, transcriptions, things of that nature. So it's a very stop and start kind of process and project. So right now, especially during the winter months, there's not a whole lot of activity, I don't think, going on within the project itself. So this was just, we hadn't really had a newsletter since Susie left, trying to fill some really large shoes there. And there wasn't, like I said, a whole lot going on in the project. So just trying to get some information out there, at least for when the project starts ramping back up for the summer.
Yes.
Very cool.
I guess you've done newsletters before, or was this the first one?
I mean, this is the first real newsletter I've ever done,
Okay.
but
Okay.
It's beautiful. I'm your Klimt.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then I thought this was funny, a little ad.
Oh yeah.
Gotta add a little humor. And then the alternative burial trends, I thought that was cool too.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had some member spotlights, Amy and Natalie. Was there another one? And Rhonda.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Do you have ideas for your next newsletter? I guess you're going to do it quarterly.
I am going to do it quarterly. It takes quite a bit to,
Yeah, I can imagine.
you know, put it all together, as you can imagine. Yeah. So I do have some topics that I'll be playing with for the upcoming newsletters.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions for Steve? If you want to rile those up? I don't know if Mags or Eowyn, you have a question for Steve you wanted to ask?
I already asked.
Okay. I don't know if you had another one.
So, Steve,
He started.
go ahead, Eowyn. Please, after you.
you sort of touched on it, but maybe you can just take a minute and explain just kind of what the project is and how people can be involved and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So the real goal of the Cemeteries Project is to go out, photograph gravestones, monuments, work to transcribe them, and then get all that information onto profiles. So either creating profiles or updating existing profiles. And in the newsletter, we talked about, the difference between Find a Grave and WikiTree. One of the things we're really concerned about is using original content, using sources, not just, simply a photo or creating a profile devoid of any other information just because they're buried somewhere. So we're trying to connect them through categories, connect them through the cemetery where they're buried, the locations where they live, so other people can find these profiles as well. Overall, just increasing the number of documented burials on WikiTree, improving the existing profiles that we have. And again, we're broke down into a series of teams. So, for example, we have the North American Cemeteries team, Europe Cemeteries team, and all of those are broken down into working groups. And it really helps people from a specific area that either live in a specific area or, interested in a specific area, work together on cemeteries and things of that nature.
Very cool. It's a really exciting project, I think.
Yeah.
There's a question from Chris Ferriello who wants to know, will you be connecting to international burials?
Such as?
Well, like, do you have Canadian burials?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So North America, is it going to be Europe? Is it going to be?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah. They have
the
Europe team and all that.
Yeah, so we have like North America, all the continents, and then each of the continents are broken down into countries. So the North American Cemeteries team will include the Bahamas, Canada, Mexico, the United States, etc. It really is, like the project says, it is the Global Cemeteries Project. We cover everything across the globe.
So Chris, what he's saying is read.
Oh.
Well, I think we also had a lag in the questions as well. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any other questions come in, but what are your goals for the project do you have any goals for the project maybe this year, or the next few months, or?
No, I have to see if I can find it. One of the things that we're wanting to do, I guess now, especially since the release of the newsletter, there's been a lot of good ideas put forward. One of the things we're going to try to start doing is highlighting a bunch of these profiles that are being created through the project. Some of the cemeteries. Mary Jensen recently sent out an email to the cemeteries group. I'm looking for that now. And she has, let's see, she is currently celebrating the essential completion of her very first cemetery. So she's about 99% done with the entire cemetery. The remaining 1% that she can't do is for listings where a living person is listed. Obviously, hasn't
right.
Died.
They're not in residence yet.
Right, exactly. And also those for some very recent graves of children, for example. They're under the age of 13, so just kind of the privacy matters there. Otherwise, the cemetery is completely finished. So she's done amazing work on that. So hopefully we can highlight that type of action more in the future as well.
We have a great question from Amy Gilpin. She says she had someone ask, why are we trying to duplicate Find a Grave? And she says she explained that it's only part of what WikiTree is all about. And what's the project's view on that? What's the project view of somebody saying, oh, you're just trying to do Find a Grave again?
Oh, yeah. So this all comes back to, again, it kind of brushes on this in the newsletter. Find a Grave, they're really focused on creating what they call this virtual cemetery experience. When you really start digging into the profiles, the lack of sources, basically there's a lot of false information, false lineages that are through Find a Grave. They don't care about the sources. So what they end up doing is creating more focus on the cemetery itself, not on the profiles. WikiTree, on the other hand, is focused on those profiles. Everything else is secondary. So the cemeteries that they are buried in are secondary to the profiles themselves. We want them sourced. We're able to collaborate with users across the world on all this information. It's just a completely different experience.
Good answer.
That was a great explanation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Susie had another question about how can geographical projects help collaborate with the Global Cemeteries Project?
The best way is going to be through our geographical teams. So really the way that we have it set up is all of the teams are going to be broken down into country, or like the United States, for example, we're broken down into state teams. Those state teams really should be collaborating with their geographical counterparts. That will help them with people who are more experienced in, let's say, the historical aspects. They're able to collaborate, create a profile. You don't have a whole lot of information or don't know where to get more information sources for this profile. You can kind of pass it off to another project to see if they can't help with it.
Okay. And then Susie had another question about what's your favorite part about leading the Global Cemeteries Project? What do you love most about leading the project?
That is a good question. I'm not sure I have an answer for it. I mean, me, myself, I've always been drawn to cemeteries, mostly because of the architecture that's involved with them.
Not ghost hunting?
Say again?
Not ghost hunting?
No, not ghost hunting. So when it really hit me, I kind of explained a little bit on my biography as well, is back in 2011 when my grandmother passed away, so we were out burying her, and I'm from a very rural area. All of my, or most of my ancestors that immigrated to the United States are all buried in the same place. So they're all buried in this one cemetery. And, as we're standing there, I'm looking around and I'm, not only are we burying my grandmother now, but I'm standing next to the graves of my great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, all these ancestors that are all over the place. And that really kind of, not to sound cliche or anything, but kind of, shook me to my core and made me have a better understanding and a better appreciation for what was actually going on and where I actually was. So just being able to, as a leader of the project, I guess, helping people with any, questions or issues they may have, just from the WikiTree perspective, that's a great benefit.
That's
Wow.
touching.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It is.
Were you
Yeah.
getting ready to be crying there when you were talking about that? You sounded like you were getting emotional.
My grandmother was, she was the leader of our family, and that's all it was. So after she passed, things kind of broke apart.
Right.
My grandfather, God bless him, he's still around. He will be 95 this year.
Wow.
Still sharp as a tack, so still trying to get a lot of information from him. I got brick walls on his side that we're trying to bust through.
Right.
Just stuff, but it's definitely emotional.
Good. Well, sometimes emotion makes the best things come of us.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of drives you to do more.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's very touching.
Absolutely.
You look like a tough guy, but we know
Yeah.
now.
I'm just a teddy bear.
That's very lucky of you, though, too, that you have all of your ancestors buried in one location. Mine are all scattered. I have some buried in Guatemala. I have, like, my grandmother and grandfather buried in Guatemala. I have ancestors. My other grandmother, who just recently passed away, they actually went up to bury her in Virginia, where her husband was, and I have people buried in Pennsylvania. So I don't actually have because my parents moved here where I am now, so there's nothing of my ancestors where I am. So I think it's lucky for those people that are still living where their ancestors were. At least research and knowing what they lived through. I think that's great. So
it's definitely been an experience learning everything about the area. Our local community is actually coming up on their 200-year anniversary, so there's a big book that's being published about it, things of that nature. I kind of help them, contribute to that. Like I said, my family's been in the area forever, since before it was. So I'm actually from Crosby. It's on the outskirts of Harris County in Texas. So, I mean, it's a really small community. It's growing now, but everybody knows everybody. I'm related to everybody. I actually had to go outside of Crosby to find a wife to marry.
Well, so thank you for not carrying on that endogamy.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions for Steve or anything you wanted to talk about, Steve, in general? I know Natalie had a question for you way at the beginning.
Let's try and stick to cemeteries for this one.
Okay. Was there anything you wanted to talk about, though, Steve?
No, I really don't have anything.
Okay.
Tell people how they can join the project.
I have another question.
All
So,
right.
Steve, you seem to be somewhat informed. I know South Carolina, where all of my people are buried, has a law that says family has the right to access any cemetery, no matter where it is. Mm-hmm. So if it's on private land or whatever, is that the norm across the U.S. that family members are allowed to access those properties?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that may actually be one of the rare cases where that would exist. So here in Texas, we have a couple of cemeteries of my family as well. There's 3 people, I believe, that are buried on private property. It was old family farm that was sold years ago, put a road through. We have absolutely no access to the cemetery without contacting the owners of the property. So we have no rights to access the grounds at all.
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely going to depend on the state and even the local levels.
Yeah, I just found out that a cemetery that belongs to the Allen family in South Carolina, that the property owner has actually put up a fence now that you can't access it. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to the former property owner over this week, and they said, oh, yeah, all you have to do is call them and let them know you're coming, and they'll let you through.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, we're lucky enough where we can contact the owners of this property, and I can go there anytime I want. Other than that, but if I don't contact them beforehand and I was to walk out there, I'd, probably immediately be arrested for trespassing.
Or shot.
Yeah, out here, that is definitely a possibility.
Up in the hills of the Carolinas, I'm very careful tromping around in the woods up there.
I think that segues into a question, since there are some cemeteries or plots that are in private land. I'm assuming there are still laws that says those people who own the land can't remove them or do anything to those cemeteries themselves. They own the land, but they can't touch the gravestone or the body or anything that's there.
Absolutely. And there's still, it seems like every year there's always some type of new construction that's going on in a ancient cemetery that's been long forgotten. Bones are being dug up, so it's actually, in the United States, they have federal laws regarding it that, once bones are unearthed, all construction has to stop. It has to be investigated. They have to figure out exactly what's going on. And then depending on the situation, the builders, the construction company, may actually have to pay to reinter those into another cemetery somewhere.
We've had a couple of answers to my question as well. Pip and Susie both say that Tennessee and North Carolina also have the same law that ancestors have a right to access family plots. And then Natalie says that it's different localities have different bylaws. Let's see.
I don't know about Florida or my other, or Virginia. I'd have to look that up.
Pip says it's just polite to ask first. Certainly is.
Absolutely.
Especially if there's a shotgun barrel anywhere nearby.
No. And there's a lot of things that the not necessarily the project, but people working within the project who are going out to these cemeteries. There's a lot of things we have to be cognizant of. Is, for example, there was another discussion. I'm looking up at my emails. There is a cemetery in Australia right now that is going through what they call a renewal process. So everybody leases a grave spot for a certain amount of years. I believe it's 25 years. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong on this. You give it a 25-year lease, and you have an option to extend for another 25 years. So every or burial plot within certain sections of the cemetery come up for renewal every 50 years. Well, they will take down the headstone if they're in bad condition or something of that nature. They'll photograph it, take away the headstone, and then expand the space so they can bury more bodies next to them. You don't always own the space. So, we're losing headstones. And again, with all these alternative burial methods, which I was explaining to Susie and them earlier, I'll be one of the alternative burial methods, is really losing access to what we know now as cemeteries.
That's interesting. So you still don't, unless maybe you buy a burial plot, but you don't own it forever.
It doesn't actually mean anything. Yeah. The body will still remain, but any marker or existence that you ever, were there will just disappear. Somebody else will be interred next to you. Their gravestone will go up.
Fran Weidman says that they do that in Germany as well.
Okay. Yep. And I believe Isabel was saying they do that in France.
And Susie's being rude. She just says we all turn into fertilizer.
Hey, that was one of the ones in the newsletter as well. The bio urns, I believe they call them. They have one that is shaped like an egg, and you can either have ashes put into it, or the body without embalming is placed into an egg with a tree, and you become the fertilizer for this tree. It's kind of like a living memorial.
We have an interesting question in the chat. Amy Gilpin has said that in Lanark County, which is here in Ontario, one of their first cemeteries had serious issues with vandalism of old headstones. And I imagine what she's inferring is that people are coming back and doing more vandalism over time. What is your take on that? And what can we do other than trying to educate people about not being idiots? What can we do to try and help with that?
And that's a really hard question. I think the biggest thing for us is to really be advocates for the cemeteries. Let people know what they are actually about. This is our history. This is all it is. It is our history. So just like we would protect ancient buildings and things of that nature, we need to protect our gravestones and our cemeteries as well. Vandalism is hard. I know there was a big one that was on the news here recently. I don't remember exactly where it was at. A group of teenagers decided to go out drinking alcohol and ran through a cemetery, and they just absolutely destroyed hundreds of gravestones that can never be replaced. It's sad, but it's just being advocates, getting, standing up for them, helping take care of them, and especially in rural areas that they really don't have like a preservation society. It's just, helping take care of them, making sure we're not doing any extra damage to them. First, do no harm.
And Amy, also, you could send a note to Ontario Ancestors. I know I've heard Steve Fulton, who's the president, talk about doing something as an organization to try and educate and prevent gravestone issues or the tearing up of graveyards. Try the Ontario Ancestors. I think that they have some sort of movement going on if you wanted to get involved in that, Amy.
Right. Yeah. And Natalie and Ross are both chiming in here, and they're both absolutely correct. So photographing what we have now whenever possible, so we have a record of what was there, mapping those cemeteries. And again, part of this whole thing tying back into the project is being able to go out and record all this information, transcribe it, and get it onto these profiles on WikiTree so they're not lost forever in these incidents.
Hang a sign up that says this cemetery is under video surveillance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you just put a haunted sign up, and then maybe it'll deter some people.
Yeah, there's a family cemetery in a church that is a well-attended church that I took pictures of my grandmother there back in the 80s. And I saw pictures that were being posted on Find a Grave where all of those tombstones have been broken and shattered. And I'm just, it's heartbreaking that in 20 years somebody's ruined my family plot in this beautiful cemetery in an active church. So
yeah, it's upsetting. But Susie said to also Susie had said like give tours of your local cemetery. And then what you guys were saying about if you're in an area that doesn't have a preservation or like a genealogy society, maybe start one or maybe initiate that.
Just sneak out and hang those signs. Video surveillance. Our cameras are so small, you'll never find them.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine for ghost hunters how much fun that would be? To have, like the traffic cams we have on the interstates now, a live cam of a cemetery. Oh, I want one. I want one. I want to watch some cemetery cams.
That would be good.
I think we're out of questions.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then Eowyn dropped off. So
she kept beeping. She was waiting for you to say a bad word. She kept beeping. Beep, beep. And your boa got really active.
I know. She decided to go around.
Yeah.
But she likes to put like her butt right here. I'm like, no.
She's jealous that you're doing something.
Yeah, she needs attention all the time. Well, thank you, Steve. This was very informational. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, we're gonna try to do this. Have some people from leaders of projects or just members of projects come on and talk about their project. Have some insight, some fun facts, things. I learned some stuff today about cemeteries and laws, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's been almost an hour pretty much, and I think we've covered everything. So unless we have any last minute questions for Steve or just in general, I think we will end for today. And thank you, Mags, for joining us again as well. So
I love being here.
And then I don't see anything else, so I guess we'll head off for the day.
Yeah. I believe there's an announcement about Wednesday night.
Oh, yes. So for those of you, we're going to try to do a monthly live stream that is in a different time for those of you in a different time zone. So on Wednesday, I think we decided 6, I forgot the time, either 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be doing a live stream on Wednesday. So if you are around that time zone Wednesday, it kind of be like a summary of the month, kind of doing, instead of weekly, one monthly one, like a wrap up. So if you're around, we'll see you on Wednesday in the evening. I'll post about it.
In the evening.
In the evening. If it's evening time for you, it might be morning time for you. Who knows?
Right. It might be a different day for you.
It's true.
It's true.
Who knows? It might not be Wednesday. It might be Thursday, or it might be Tuesday. I don't know. But I will post about that. Keep an eye out for that. I'll do that this weekend for Wednesday. And we will see you then, either Wednesday or Saturday or the next time. So we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.
Bye.